First, it's very moving to come and speak in Amsterdam. You know, yesterday, you, dear doctor, you made me walk to the memorial of Holocaust, and I realized that so many Jews have been arrested, put in train, transported, deported, gassed in Auschwitz, in a very beautiful city. So I cannot avoid the first question, where were the neighbors? You know, I am a little bit specialist of the neighbors. As you know, I am not Jew. You understand, Professor Berkov? Thank you also, Professor Berkov, because now I know if I die, somebody can say the truth, and you will be the one. And I am from Burgundy. That is much more well known for the wine, but for Holocaust. And you are right, Professor Berkov. When I was a child, we knew nothing about Holocaust. No teaching, no book, nothing. We knew only about the deportation of the communists and the partisans. And my grandpa never accepted to speak. When we said Ravaruska, my grandmother cried, and it was silence. So one day, I was alone with him, and I say, why you don't speak? Perhaps you killed people. He was very upset. He told me, no, I was a prisoner. We had no food, no drink. But outside the camp was worse than a camp. And I didn't understand. But I kept this phrase, outside the camp was worse. He passed away, unfortunately, very quickly. And I went back to Ravaruska many years later. Nobody wanted to speak. It was Soviet time. So the mayor received me and said, no, we don't know. Yes, they killed many Jews, but it was secret. And you know, I knew that in Ravaruska they shot 18,000 Jews. It's not a big city. And in my village, we killed 2 Germans, and everybody knows. So I was thinking, how is it possible? It took me years. I came back 5, 6 times to Ravaruska with the same question. Where are the mass graves of the Jews? As you know, I was the nudnik of the village. Only one question. And finally, when the mayor brought me to the forest with 50 farmers who were present at the killing, it blew my mind. I didn't know it was public. I didn't know everybody was running to watch. I didn't know. There were only 2 Germans with carabine, and they shot 1,500 Jews. And I will never forget, I saw a witness. He was looking pretty young. I said, how old you were? He told me I was 6 years old. And I said, and you were present at the killing? He said, yes. Because the Germans, from one hand, they were shooting, and from the other hand, they were giving candies to the children of the village. And I was running from the table to the village with candies. I will never forget, all these farmers wanted to speak. They are not historians. They are not educated people. They are not the bystanders, the upstanders, or whatever. They are only the neighbors present at the shooting. I will never forget the first one. I always pay homage to him. His name is Martin. He was present because he was keeping a cow. And suddenly, he see one German coming alone, and he was wondering, why a German in our village? In fact, now we know they sent an architect, a specialist, 2-3 days before. He goes to the city hall to know how many Jews are still alive, and he will calculate the size of the mass grave to know how to put people inside. There are 2 kinds of mass graves. There are mass graves with stairs. When they force the Jews to go down and lay on the corpse, it's called Sardinenpackung. And the other methodology was to shoot people from the top. In Ravaruska, they shot people from the top. Effectively, Martin told me, a few days after, arrived 2-3 Germans with a truck of Jews, and they forced the Jews to dig. You know, these neighbors, they remember the small details that we don't care at the beginning. They say the Germans were worried. So they asked a table, they began to grill chicken, and they put a gramophone to listen German music. And one, he was playing harmonica, and he broke his harmonica. And after, with metallic detector, we found the pieces of harmonica on the ground. And after a certain moment, they said to the Jews, you are tired, go out of the grave and rest. So the Jews went out, sat down, and secretly, an Ukrainian policeman went down and put explosive. After, they said to the Jews, you can go on digging, and all the Jews exploded. At that moment, another lady called Maria, she told me, I was 14 years old. They asked me to climb in the trees and to pick up the pieces of corpse of the Jews and to hide them with branches so that the next Jew will not see them. And after they brought trucks and trucks and trucks of Jews. In one day they shot 1,500 Jews with shooters and pushers. Why pushers? Because they established a rule, one bullet, one Jew, one bullet. So if somebody was too slow, like an old lady or a baby, they were pushing him and he was buried alive. And they remember that the mass grave was moving during 3 days. Me, I was in shock, you know. I was in shock, Professor Berkoff, because I am a simple priest. And finally I say, I found the secret of my grandpa. He saw that and he never spoke. So I was alone in the forest with the mayor and I say, okay, now it's finished, I go back to Paris. Everything changed only by something. On the road, the mayor told me, Patrick, what I did for you for one village, I can do for 100 villages. And I said, yes, I don't know why. I came back to Paris, I met with Cardinal Lustiger, was Jew. He told me, oh, I know the story because they shot my Jewish-Polish family the same way in Beijing. And we built this non-profit with a strange name, Yachad Inunum, together in Hebrew, Yachad, and Inunum in one in Latin. It's a silly name, because when I speak to Catholic, they say, what is Yachad? When I speak to Jews, they say, what is Inunum? And for most of the people, they don't understand and Yachad and Inunum. But it's like that. So now, effectively, we have filmed 8,000 non-Jews present at the killing of Jews and Roma, because they shot the Roma the same way. I promise you I will speak of them. And we worked in different countries. We worked from Lithuania to Azerbaijan. I say that because most of the people think we work mainly in Ukraine. We began in Ukraine. But after people say, why you don't do Belarus? I say, yes, what don't do Belarus? After we did Belarus, after, why not Moldavia? Oh, we did Moldavia, etc., etc. And we found 2,700 extermination sites from Lithuania to Azerbaijan. It was a continent of extermination. 2 times Auschwitz. 2 times Auschwitz. And nobody remembers. Most of the people, of course, historians made good books, but if you go in the street now and you ask about Holocaust, people will say Auschwitz. Perhaps. But nothing else. Nobody will tell you shootings. So, I would propose to you, I will not be long because I have been coached not to be more than my 40 minutes. And I will make you a few reflections. You are an upscale group, and there are students in the back, and I pay tribute that you came here. I would like to make you think. You know, 20 years of investigation of Holocaust, of genocide of Roma, and then in Iraq, and in Guatemala, and now in Ukraine. It took me years to understand that Holocaust was not a tsunami. Shoah was not a tsunami. It was thousands and thousands of young men, mainly from Germany, who assassinated with guns, with machine guns, in many villages, women, children, old people, without any hesitation. They never let a baby in a village. Never. I was in a village, and they remember that the German couldn't catch a baby. He was 1 year and a half. He was hidden under a bed. But we had no time. So finally, he tried to grab him. He could not. He took a pistol. He shot the baby, and he said, I found the methodology, and he went. They never let one. We never found a small village where the German didn't come. Never. In all these countries. And we never found a place where Hitler didn't find any worker. Hitler never lacked workers to kill the Jews. You know, when you begin in Ukraine. So people say, and sometimes also we say, oh, bad Ukrainian. After you go to Moldavia, you say, oh, bad Moldavian. After you go in Lithuania, you say, oh, Lithuanian. After you go in Russia, you don't say bad Russia because you lose your visa. So, but the rest, after, when I went in Iraq, investigated about ISIS, Baghdadi, very few Polish, very few Lithuanian, very few Ukrainian, mostly from everywhere. I understood Holocaust is not a national disease. It's a human disease. It's a human disease that makes that some men or women are ready to die to kill a population. How many Germans died in East, in Soviet Union? How many? We never found a shooting where the shooters didn't want to shoot. Never. And they were not forced. The other thing is that it took me years also to understand the shootings were public, like a carnival. I was in a village called Medjibozh. It's in western Ukraine. It's the place where was born the Baal Shem Tov, the Hasidism, the Lubavitch, as you are. And 17 people wanted to speak. So I was surprised. And suddenly understood. One lady, she told me, I saw everything, Father. For the first shooting, I found a good place. For the second shooting, we didn't find a good place. I say, where were you? And we were to her home. And she said, Mom, from your home, we see nothing. It's too far. And she told me, I didn't say the truth. My mom came back from the market and said, we have to dress very well because they kill the Jews. So we dressed ourselves and we tried to find a good place. I realized that for them it was the attraction. They wanted to see the neighbors die. And it's everywhere the same. For the Roma it's the same, and in Iraq it's the same. When you were sure you were not Jew, you were not gypsy, you were not communist, you were not gay, so you were sure you will not be a victim. So you went to watch. And I don't know in Amsterdam how many people were watching the arrestation. And when I see that all these young men came from Germany, from Stuttgart, from Köln, from Berlin, from the smallest city, with a Christian education, most of them, don't forget that the period, Germany was very Catholic and Protestant, and didn't hesitate to assassinate millions of people one by one. It's another thing I would like to develop. Don't forget that many witnesses, many neighbors in Soviet Union were also Christian. I will never forget the same lady in the village of the Medjibozh. She told me, when I saw the Jews died, killed by the Nazi and walking in the middle of the Christian, I was thinking it was the last judgment. It was the end of the world, because it was the replica, the revenge for the death of Jesus. And so she was there like you saw something from God, in fact. It was God's action. And she was crossing. People were crossing during the shooting. And after I asked, were you crossing? Of course. So don't also misunderstand. The Germans were from Christian country. And they were killing these people in front of people who were also mainly Christian. So they built a Christian scenario. I say that because it's sad to say, because I'm Christian, that religion was also part of the genocide. Always people speak of Pi 12 and that, but it was not the problem, it was the neighbors. I will never forget, I was in Poland. I knocked at the door to find a witness, but I made a mistake. I knocked at the bad door. So suddenly the door opened and the family told me, what do you want? I say, I'm coming to find people who were present at the shooting of the Jews. Oh, you're a priest, come in. And say, oh, my father was. He calls the grandfather. And the grandfather say, oh, yes, I was present at the killing of the Jews. You know, 3 Jews escaped from the shooting. They escaped from the mass grave. I could catch them and bring them back to be shot. And I said, do you accept to make an interview? Oh, of course. We made a long interview. It was a beautiful summer day. The family was around. And after he showed 3 small mass graves that he did. But the worst is that the family was present at the interview. And they told me at the end, Father, can we get a DVD or souvenir of Grandpa? So you must understand, when you have a genocide, don't think that people cry around. People realize they will get the house, they will get the garden, they will get the shoes, they will get the dresses, everything. Who got all the belongings of the Jews in Amsterdam? I don't know. But in Ukraine, I can tell you, and in Moldavia too. I will never forget, because people tried to grab the clothes of the Jews, and in every village they told me, after 3 days after the shooting, we were all dressed in Jew. Another point I would like to raise is the question of propaganda. You must know that before the shootings, in many villages, before, they make a lot of propaganda. It's not like today, you have not internet and telephone and say TikTok, no. It was only flyers that they put against the Jews, with many slogans, small flyers, but a lot. Professor Berkoff, I didn't investigate enough about propaganda. I made concrete propaganda in the village. But now I work in Ukraine. In actual Ukraine, I just come back from Kherson 2-3 weeks ago. And I saw this young Russian believing in propaganda. That every Ukrainian is a Nazi, that you can shoot people, you can shoot a lady, you can shoot a maternity. There's no problem. They are Nazi, you must exterminate them. You heard recently that Lavrov, the foreign minister, say, we are the Jews, and they want to exterminate us. You say, come on, we are in 2023. The foreign minister of one of the biggest countries in the planet says now we are the Jew, and Western Europe wants to exterminate us. Propaganda is still very effective. We are weak. The conscience of humanity is very fragile, like small ice on the water. And I think we should analyze the propaganda that was done in every village before the shooting of the Jews of the Roma, because we had also a propaganda against the Roma to shoot them, because they shot every Roma that they found. So why today, more than 80 years after Auschwitz, after Babi Yar, after all the shootings, why to teach Holocaust? You know, some people say, why to teach Holocaust? Because they were Jews, in fact. Now there were Rwanda, there was Cambodia, Darfur, etc. At the beginning, I paid attention to these people. But when somebody say, now there is Darfur, I say, do you work in Darfur? In fact, they don't care. So, but nevertheless, this question begins to be important. Because, you know, me, I'm professor in Georgetown, and now I see that for my students who are 18 years ago, old, 20, 22, it's not story of grandpa, it's grandpa. And me, my grandpa died in the First World War, and I'm sad to say I don't care so much. My memory stops at grandpa. So you don't ask a young student to say, hey, you must go to grandpa. It's important in your life. Most of them say, okay, but you see bombing every day at the TV, shooting every day at the TV. So I will finish by some observation. I'm sure I will keep my time, because she looks at me. And she told me I will wave you if you make more time. Because she said one time the guy spoke 70 minutes, we were to die. So I promise you. So I will try to say something a little bit complicated. You know, me, first I understood that they were shooting Jews during 3 years, because it didn't stop when Auschwitz began. Many people think it stopped and they made Auschwitz. No. It finished at the end of the war. You know, when they were near Azerbaijan, we didn't send them to Auschwitz. And when I work in Iraq, when I work in other countries like Guatemala, like today Ukraine, there is no Auschwitz. We came back to mass crimes done one, by shooting, by bombing, by cutting the throat, etc. And I will never forget, a long time ago in Soviet time, a very well-known person in Poland called Stefan Vulkanowicz was a member of the International Committee of Auschwitz. A good guy, not anti-Semite at all. He told me, Father Patrick, because he was very respectful, he told me, Father Patrick, Hitler made a mistake. I was young, you know, so I tried to learn something. I say, which mistake? He told me he built Auschwitz. And I asked him, why for you it's a mistake? He told me, because people are coming back with trucks, with buses, with cars. But when they killed them in forest, Jews never came back. It took me years to understand. But when I am in big place of shooting like Branaya Gora, 30,000 people minimum, nobody comes back. Nobody comes back. In 99% of the places where I saw the shooting of the Jews and Roma, nobody comes back. Nobody comes back. And when I work in Iraq with the mass grave of the Yazidi, done by ISIS, of the mass graves of the Christian or other people, nobody comes back. Only journalists, one day to make pictures in New York Times, but after bye-bye. Darfur, do you know where are the mass graves? Nobody comes back. And you remember all the noise about Darfur. Even the biggest artists were to the White House. One day I asked two specialists, where are the mass graves of Darfur? Nobody comes back. So, you know, unfortunately, Hitler is well known. Me, I made conferences everywhere. In Europe, in America, in Central Asia, in South America. You have not to explain Hitler. We don't remember Stalin. We don't remember Mao. We don't remember Pol Pot. We don't remember the president of Sudan. The mass killer who makes his name, the brunt, is Hitler. And you know, me, I think that the mass killers, they learned that if you make a camp like Auschwitz, the satellite will see immediately. The journalists will take picture. Immediately, genocide. You remember the last camp we saw in Bosnia, the small image we saw in TV. But in Syria, 500,000 dead. No camp. Jail, shooting, killing, bombing. Where are the corpses? Disappeared. Mass graves. So I would say, let's be careful. There are nice meetings like you, with good people, want to fight against antisemitism who is coming back, like a black wind. But there are other groups who are against, who are beyond the direction, and we try to see how to do. And today in the news, in France, I'm from France, I'm happy that the ambassador of France joined us, very proud. But if they kill a Jew today, we don't ask in which camp he is. We only say somebody killed him. And we have to find the killer because he has been killed by somebody by hand. And it's the same in America. When there is a shooting, we don't ask in which camp people are. They have been killed by somebody. And so we have to train young generations, because the killers also, they think. They never repeat the mistake of Hitler. We don't see Auschwitz in Rwanda, no Auschwitz in Cambodia, no Auschwitz in Darfur, no Auschwitz in Bashar al-Assad territory, no Auschwitz today in Ukraine. But personal killing. We came back to genocide handmade. So we have to teach education. Because to kill people, you need the neighbors to hate them. And you see that antisemitism is coming back from right side, from left side, and from Islamist side. Like banal, you know, many people don't like the Jews, like people don't like the fish. You know, you have a dinner and people don't like the fish, you say, we have vegetables. And so it's the same, but there are also people who deeply don't like the Jews for any reason. Too rich, too poor, they made Israel or they made something else. Always a reason. Be careful. Xenophobia, hate, antisemitism begins again to be banal. And when it's banal, you can commit crimes. It's not a hazard that suddenly, in my country, more than 12 Jews have been assassinated, and by neighbors. So, we have to take our responsibility. We have to teach young generation that in your country, in my country, in many countries, there were also writers among the nation, people who saved Jews with simple things, hiding them, giving food, or like the police was make you escape from the train. Simple people who did the right thing. To be an activist against hate and antisemitism doesn't need to be a big official. Most of the people in France have been saved by simple people. Simple people. So it's accessible to everybody to be a writer. We have to teach. I will finish by a commentary of the Bible, because in spite I'm a priest, I believe in God. So, you know, the beginning of the Bible, Cain is killing Abel. And me, the first brother is killing his brother. So, me always know that if it was not at the beginning of the Bible, nobody would read this text, because it's a bad affair, you know. A brother who kills his brother, and the first time. And you know that God asked, where is your brother? He asked to Cain. Not who is he, not where, localization. So God has the same obsession than me. And so, but you remember the answer of Cain, he said, am I the guardian of my brother? I have nothing to do, he's dead, it's okay, me I'm alive, I am my life, the future, why I would care about the dead? And God said, don't you hear that the blood of Abel is coming, black climbing from earth to heaven? And the commentary of Rashi says it was not the blood, but the bloods. It means all the people will be assassinated. So either we will build a Europe, build on the silence about Holocaust, about mass crimes, about hate crimes in our country, and make a normal life, thinking of holidays, next house, next dog, next swimming pool. Either will say no. The blood will not stop to go until heaven. Thank you.